Well, hello and welcome to the Preserved Word with Brad McFadden. Pastor Brad, Bright Star Church in Hopkins County, Texas. We've been taking a look at what the Bible says about the Bible and how using the Bible can really help answer a lot of questions. Instead of turning to man's doctrines, turn to the Bible. Okay. And of course, we started this project with looking at why and how the Bible can teach us what Bible to use and how the Bible supports a Byzantine priority versus a new textual criticism priority, or the NU as they call it. And so that's where we started, and then we began to take a look at how the Bible helps us resolve some other issues that are going on. And today we're going to take a look at that too. Now, today we're talking about this because of this man right here. And I wish I could figure out his name. I watch him all the time, but his name is not on his channel. It's Biblical Studies and Reviews. And I don't remember his name. So I apologize for that. But I like him. He does a good job. I watch him because he is he is a Byzantine priorist. He defends the TR, okay? And he did a good job of defending against Mark Ward and other things that he talks about. I was actually watching his show on defending the long ending of Mark. And he did a really good job of giving 5 reasons why we can have confidence that the long ending of Mark is supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in our Bibles. And so that's the kind of thing I like. And of course, and he did a good job of doing that. But then this video came up after that, and I was just working and it was playing, and I was just listening to it, and this video came up, and it's sort of a theme. And so because a lot of internet shows seem to be on this topic, and anyway, so I thought that I would take a look at it from our perspective of, hey, what does the Bible say about this? And let's just take a look at what we're talking about. What happened here? I'm sorry. My thing got off. There we go. So let's take a look at it. What we're talking about here is these 2 phrases. Just this generation and all these things. Let's just read the sentence first. Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Now you'll be surprised at how many people have lost their minds over this sentence, and specifically about these 2 phrases. Let's give some context first of all as to why these 2 phrases put together like this are causing so much angst. And so many people, like even, I wish I knew his name. Anyway, even this guy that I just referenced, and I'll put a link to his video in my show notes, and he's good to watch on a lot of stuff. Okay. I like this guy, but I'm going to disagree with him today. Disagree with my brother because he says that a lot of people try to wiggle out of this generation. And I've heard other people tell me that, hey, this generation always means this generation. I'm like, yeah, it does. Of course it does. But what does that mean? This generation can mean more than one thing. And we're going to take a look at that the Bible makes it clear. First of all, we can just look up the word generation. It's actually a Greek. It has a Greek history. We get our word generation from a Greek word. Let's take a look at that real quick. I'll just, let's see. I'll take away this other part of my screen here. You can see Strong's lists generation to mean several things. It can be this genera. This is the word. This is the Greek word right up here. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's pretty small on your screen. But look it up yourself. It's Strong's 1074. And actually, I'm not in Strong's. I'm in the Greek Dictionary of the New Testament. Sorry about that. And anyway, it says age, generation, nation, or time. Okay. It can refer to a group of people. Okay. A trace of genealogy. is what it says here, a trace of genealogy. So we can see there, and I'm not a Greek expert, and I may be butchering, how what that is, but it's very clear that it can be more than one way, can be used in more than one way. And I think that's sort of obvious as well from the context of the Bible and how the Bible uses generation throughout the Bible. Let's see here. I have a note here. Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure I got my notes right. Now, let's go over context first. And this is why this is such a problem. And people think they have to rescue what Jesus said here. And that's not my word. That's what R.C. Sproul said. We have to rescue this passage. His conclusion was all these things have taken place, which means Jesus Christ has already returned. Now, this guy doesn't say that. He believes in a future coming of Jesus Christ. And what he does is change one of these things to not mean Jesus coming back, but to mean Jesus ascending to the Father. But we're going to take a look at that too. First of all, let's get the context. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. What is he talking about? Starts all the way up here when his disciples ask him a question. Jesus pops off and says that not one stone will be left on another. They shall be thrown down. I'm sorry. Let me start over. Jesus is talking about the temple. He's walking through the temple, and his disciples are showing him the buildings. I don't really understand. I mean, Jesus had been there. He'd seen them, but I guess they're just in awe of the building. And Jesus makes a comment that it's going to be destroyed. In fact, he says not one stone will be left on top of another. And then, so when they get him alone, when he gets on the Mount of Olives, they ask him, tell us when these things will be. And I got them thinking, because there was connotations in that. So it got them thinking, and they said, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Now, of course, they did not understand, and he points out, well, they can't be talking about his second coming here because they didn't even understand he was going to be crucified yet. Fair enough. What they're talking about here, when they say the sign of your coming, they're not asking about his ascension to the Father either, which was his point. No, what they're talking about is his coming to power. Okay, they're looking for a Messiah that's going to rule and reign. And so what is going to be the sign of your coming into power? That's what they're talking about. And the end of the age. So they understood that this would be a new age. Now, Jesus goes into and talking about many will say that I've come here, come there. Now, Jesus is talking here, obviously, like he's like a second coming. Okay, which has got to be confusing to them if they're not on the same page, if they don't realize he's going to die and have to return, which he's told them already. But if they don't really truly understand that, that's fine. But it's going to be very confusing to them to hear this, because he's clearly talking about, look, people are going to say I'm over here, I'm over there, and false Christs are going to come and deceive many. False messiahs are going to come and deceive many, and you're going to hear wars and rumors of wars and all these things. He says, but don't worry about it. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. That doesn't mean it's the end of the time. And you're going to be delivered up into tribulation, and you're going to be hated, and many are going to grow cold. But don't worry about it. He says, guys, the end is not going to come until the gospel has gone all the way around the world. Okay? That's what he says there. And then he talks about some more things, and he says, the abomination of desolation spoken to by Daniel is going to appear in the holy place. And when you see that, run to the mountains. Now, a lot of people say that this happened in 70 AD because this allowed... I hate that does that when I highlight things, but it's fine. That this part right here, verse 16, has already happened because in 70 AD, the Christians knew, because Jesus had told them to flee to the mountains. So they didn't hide in the city. They fled to the mountains. And then... Rome came in and destroyed the city and killed all the ruling powers, the scribes and the Pharisees, and all the non-believing Jews. And but the problem is we don't have any reference here. We don't have the abomination of desolation in the temple. And there's no record of that. Church fathers didn't talk about that. Even the New Testament, because some of the New Testament was written after 70 AD, doesn't talk about that. It doesn't talk about Jesus' return at that time. Because people say, well, Jesus returned in judgment. That's not what if we look in context, that's not what he's talking about. We'll get to that in just a second. But so I don't know. I mean, yes, I do think there's some evidence to say that the Christians were like, okay, let's flee to the mountains now. Jesus told us to flee to the mountains, and so let's flee to the mountains. But there's no evidence they saw the abomination of desolation, because the Rome weren't even in the city when they fled. So not sure about this. There's no record of this happening. But I think it's going to take place in the future, in the new temple, and that maybe there was a partial fulfillment, or maybe the Christians fled because the Holy Spirit told them to. That, hey, this applies to you right now. Go. I don't know. Maybe they saw that the continuing sacrifices being done in the temple, maybe they saw them as the abomination that brings desolation. But it doesn't say that. They never said that. They never recorded it that way. So not really sure. Remember, the purpose of prophecy is not for us to figure it out. The purpose of prophecy is that when we see it fulfilled, that we know God's in control, that God is sovereign, is to give us peace, is to let us know, is to glorify God. Hey, God, yeah, all these bad things are happening, but God said they would. Jesus warned us this was going to happen. He's in control. We can have peace in his promises. He's not surprised by this. That's the purpose of prophecy. It's good to study it. It's very necessary to study it, because when it's fulfilled, it gives you peace. It gives you comfort, and it glorifies God. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. He gives them these warnings: flee the mountains. Don't take anything with you. Pray doesn't happen. Pray doesn't happen, on the Sabbath or in winter. He says, verse 21, this is kind of telling. He says, for there will be great tribulation, such has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be. And that's kind of hard to believe that was 70 AD. Now, I know 70 AD was bad. It talks about them eating their own children. It was so bad. That's bad. But, we have, in hindsight, we see the Holocaust. We see a lot of other things that have happened in history that I don't see 70 AD never being, recorded as horrendous as what's happened during the Holocaust, just as an example. But there's been many tribulations of the Jews, many persecution of the Jews. Don't even know that this necessarily refers to the Jews. It could be the whole world. It could be could be a judgment, So anyway, I don't want to get into. We don't have to break down whatever all these things mean. Let's just keep going. So he says that days will be shortened for the elect's sake. Okay, those are definitely Christians. Then he says this interesting passage here. He says, look, it's not going to, this is how you know it's not the ascension that it's talking about. This guy I showed you from, man, I just need to Google who it is. I mentioned his name. This guy right here. Biblical Studies and Reviews. Who does biblical? Put your name on your stuff, man. Biblical Studies and Reviews. Nope. YouTube channel. Biblical Studies and Reviews. I typed it in, right? Oh, I said Biblica. I can't spell. There he is. Stephen Hackett. Thank you. Thank you, Google. Stephen Hackett. All right. So, Stephen Hackett, good guy. Listen to him. Check it out. Check out his channel, Stephen Hackett. Okay. Should have got that before I started this show. Stephen argues that the Son of Man appear in heaven, here it is. The Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, that this prediction is not the prediction of his second coming. This is a prediction of him ascending to the right hand of the Father. Well, that really doesn't work in context. I'm sorry. That's a wiggle. Okay. If you want to talk about wiggling out of something, that's wiggling out of something. Because look, he says, look, People are going to say, I'm over here, I'm over there. The Christ is over here, the Christ is over there. He says, don't believe it. My return is not going to be like that. If they say he's in the desert, don't go. If they say he's in the inner rooms, don't believe it. No, mine is going to be very different. Mine is going to be a global, everybody's going to know. Everybody's going to see it. You don't have to go anywhere. It's not going to be that kind of coming. It's not going to be a coming where I'm going to be in a particular place. He says, for this lightning comes from the east to the west, so will be the coming of man. Okay. And then look, we're going to be gathered together. And he talks about this. He goes back into the tribulation for a minute. And then he says, we will be gathered together. He's going to send his angels to gather us, his elect. So look, we weren't gathered. We weren't gathered up. The whole, he says every nation will see it. That hasn't happened. Okay. So whether he came in judgment in 70 AD or whether this is talking about a future coming, the clear message here is that it is him coming to us, not him coming to the Father or going to the Father. Because look, when Jesus came back, he says, I haven't been to the Father yet. When Jesus was resurrected, he said, I haven't been to the Father yet. He didn't say, I haven't come to the Father yet. He said, I haven't been to the Father. He knows how to say. He knows how to use the right word. So you don't have to bend this thing. You don't have to wiggle out of it. It's his second coming. He's going to come with power and glory, and he's going to come with his angels and gather us together. Okay. All right. So then we come down to this, and here's the problem. Assuredly, I say to you, or the perceived problem, let me put it that way. Surely I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. And here's where we're going to go, wait a minute. Is Jesus really saying that the current generation that he's talking to some of them will still be alive when all these things take place? It doesn't say that. It simply just doesn't say that. Let's just, without going anywhere else for just a moment, let's just look what it doesn't say. First he says, I say to you, this generation. He doesn't say your generation, right? He says this generation. He doesn't also say this present generation, which he does in certain other places. He knew how to say this current generation, or he would have said this present generation. He didn't say that because he wasn't talking about the present generation. He was talking about the generation they were included in. But that doesn't mean a time frame of people. Okay? It can mean a nation or a generation of people. It's talking about a group of people. And we'll see that in just a second. The Bible will tell you that. The Bible will tell you that, not me. Just hold with me for just a second. But it also doesn't say we'll die. Now, Jesus did say in another place, he said, look, some of you standing right here will not taste death until you see me coming in my glory. And right after that, and all three of them, besides John, all the other three gospels, he says that. And right after that, he appears to them in the transfiguration in his glory. So, and not all of them, just some of them. It was just Peter and John, I think it was, who got to see this. And so some of them standing right there before they tasted death got to see him coming in his glory. Right? So he knows how to say what he means. And here he doesn't say will die. He says pass away. This group of people will not go away, will not end its existence, will not pass away. It doesn't say death. Till all these things take place. All right. Now let's take another look at this generation. It doesn't always have to mean the present 40-year time frame of people. Okay. It doesn't have to mean that. And why? Because the last time these two phrases were used, that was just the chapter before. We're going to look at the chapter before and we're going to see this generation and all these things. All these things must take place before this generation. Okay, let's just look up. Let's just scroll up a minute to the previous chapter. But in this place, he's going to make it clear he's not talking about the people directly in front of him. Look, assuredly I say to you, this is, by the way, this is Matthew 23, verse 36. Assuredly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. Is he talking about the people standing right before him? Or the people that are alive in his presence? No. First of all, let's look at the context of what is he talking about here. This isn't a prophecy about end times. This is a judgment upon the scribes and Pharisees. Woe to you, 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 scribes and Pharisees. I think there's 7 of them. Woe, you blind guides. Okay, so he is placing judgment on the kingdom of men because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. They were putting stumbling blocks between God and his people, and he is judging them for it. And he says, and look what he says at the end. Look at just, let's just take, where does the sentence start? Verse 34. Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah. Now, the blood of Abel was 4,000 years prior to this, right? They weren't there for that. But look at this part right here. The blood of Zechariah. This is from Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 24, and verse 20 to 21. And here we see that Zechariah was stoned to death in the court of the house of the Lord. And Jesus says, the blood of Zechariah, son of them, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. You murdered them. This was 520 BC. None of the people that were scribes and Pharisees at the time Jesus was delivering this message were alive. Who were responsible? They weren't alive in 520. They weren't the same people. They weren't alive in 520 BC and still alive then. They weren't 600 years old. Okay? None of the people. But he's saying, you murdered them. He's talking about a group of people, the scribes and the Pharisees, not the particular people that are alive at that particular time. So when he says, you murdered them between the temple and the altar, surely I say to you, who's you? The scribes and the Pharisees, all the scribes and the Pharisees, all the people who have ever put stumbling blocks between God and man, all who have sought to rule over God's people, because God is supposed to rule over God's people, and all those who have just been part of the kingdom of men. Okay, because what is he teaching? He is teaching the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Okay, which is a rule of Christ over his people. Now, he says, you, surely I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. He doesn't mean those people that are alive today. He is talking about all the people who have ever lived, who put stumbling blocks between God and his people. He is talking about the generation of the group of people of scribes and Pharisees. That's obvious. It's obvious from the context. You can't view it any other way unless you're going to tell me that the people that Jesus was talking to were alive 520 BC. Jesus is speaking to a group of people who some of them have already passed away and some of them are alive. Why is he talking about some people who have passed? Because they're all going to be resurrected. There's a resurrection of the dead as well, not just of us. And there will be judgment placed upon them. And that's what he's saying. Look, the judgment for all these deaths are going to come upon you, your group of people. That generation, this generation, right, that he's talking to. Okay, the scribes and the Pharisees. That's the you he's talking to. He's not talking to Christians here. He's not talking to his disciples. He's talking to the scribes and Pharisees. He makes that very clear, this whole thing. Woe to you. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. You killed Zechariah. We weren't even alive then. You as a group of people. Got it? Got it. Now, the next time we see all these things, and this generation is all the way down here after all this prophecy about the end of the world. And the destruction of the temple, the end of the age, and Christ's second coming. Okay, Christ's coming is what's the question? What is the sign of your coming? Okay, all these things must take this. So I say to you, this generation of people, not this 20-year time frame. He doesn't say some of you won't taste death before you see me, before all these things take place. He says, this generation of people, Christians. Because really to us, time is, it doesn't matter, but that's a whole side thing. Surely I say to you, this generation, Christians, will by no means pass away till all these things take place. It's that simple. It's a nation of people. It's his peculiar nation. Where is that at? Because that really drives this home. Let me find that real quick. Stephen? Yeah. How you doing? Let me just find that real quick. Yep. Right there it was. 1 Peter 2:9. Let's go over here. 1 Peter 2:9. You are a chosen generation. That is the exact same word. Is he talking about just the people that are alive at that time? Absolutely not. There was a pointer. Is he talking about just the people? No, we're part of that generation. We're part of this generation of people. Look what he says. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. Now, are we excluded from all of that? No, we're not. We're part of his generation, right? We have been born together into one body, baptized together in one body. We're part of this generation. His own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Now, unless you want to exclude us from all these other things, you can't exclude us from the generation. We are the generation that will not pass away before all these things take place. Hallelujah. Amen. It is wonderful. Okay. It is wonderful. We don't have to save the Bible. We don't have to rescue this passage. We don't have to prevent Jesus from being a liar. And we don't have to say that all these things didn't take place and we just missed it. And so did all the church fathers and all the people who were there at the time. We don't have to do any of that. All we have to do is read the Bible. It'll tell us what it means. And hallelujah, we can have hope. And we can look forward to the fact that we will either die and go, and we will see it with Jesus as his return. We will come back with him in the cloud of witnesses, or we will be here and we will be gathered together at his coming. Either one is a good ending for us. Okay. Well, I hope that helps. And I've covered this before, but just wanted to. A lot of Stephen's video, I'd never heard Stephen's arguments before. Those were new to me. And he says they're not his; they belong to somebody else. And you can watch the video for yourself. But he does try to change the coming. Here you will, and they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. He changes that to mean Jesus going to the Father, the ascension, not the second coming. But in context, that really doesn't hold up because where's the gathering? If that's the case, that we were not gathered together at his ascension to the Father. You would have to change a lot of doctrine there. So we're not going to be gathered together. Those kinds of things. So just leave it as it is, read it as it is, and all you have to do is kind of adjust your way of thinking of going, wait, the Bible isn't talking about a 20-year period of time. What does it actually say? It doesn't say these people that are alive today will not die before all these things take place. That's not what it says. It says this generation will not pass away. And we just have to look and see what that means. And the Bible tells us what it means. So there you go. All right. Well, I hope that helps. Hope it builds your confidence in the word. I hope it removes questions and doubts from your mind as to God's promises and the accuracy of the Bible. That's my ultimate goal, is that we can depend and we can trust on the Bible. And so anyway, hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll talk to you next time.